Hey everybody, it's Christina from Redefine Creative, and I am here with a process video for Wild Whisper Designs, and I am playing with the Sassy Since Birth collection. And I love the bright, bold, fun colors and patterns of this collection, but it is one of those collections that was a little bit intimidating to me once it got here. So I wanted to give you some tips today on kind of how to work with a really bright, bold collection and still make sure that your photo takes center stage and stands out. So I'm going to share a few different tips with you, and if you want to check out like the printed version of everything, you can do that on the Wild Whisper blog as well. So I have this 4x6 picture of my daughter, and that is what I want to use, and I knew I wanted to use this purple text as my background. But it's bold and it's a little bit busy because it's got all of those words and phrases, all those different kinds of fonts. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to create an oversized photo block, like kind of like a photo mat for my picture. And I want it to be nice and big and oversized because it's going to give me a place to be able to start to build my embellishment clusters, but it's also going to help my photo really stand out. So instead of putting a white border around my photo, I've put a black cardstock border around my photo, which is not what I would typically do, except it's going on white cardstock, so it needed to be black instead. And then I'm going to go ahead and use this white and black photo mat as kind of that oversized area that's really going to help the photo still stand out on the layout, even though the background and some of the embellishments and things are really, really busy. So that's one of my first tips to you. If you have a busier paper that you want to use as a background, you can absolutely do that. But I totally encourage you to try out using this kind of oversized photo block to house your picture because it really helps it stand out. And then I wanted to get a little piece of this film strip cut file in here, and so I've tucked a piece underneath my photo, and then I'm also going to tuck a piece in the bottom right hand corner for an embellishment cluster, and that's going to kind of carry that element across. Putting it with a white cardstock background is really just building kind of a space where I have a break from that pattern in the background to be able to build an embellishment cluster. So then I'm going to go ahead and grab the Sassy Since Birth ephemera pack, and it has some of the coolest, most fun little like phrases and things in it, and it also has these little like multicolored bursts. They kind of look like fireworks almost, and I'm going to use those in my embellishment clusters, and so those are going to be perfect as that like foundation level to kind of create my embellishment clusters on top of. And then they have this phrase that's in purple that says Sassy Since Birth, and that is perfect. That's going to act as my title, and it's going to run right along the bottom of my photo. So that kind of leads into my second tip. If you're working with a really busy background, I like to keep my embellishment clusters kind of close to my photo. So either overlapping or very close into that photo block, because that's really going to help make sure that you draw somebody's eye to your picture rather than getting lost in your background. So I don't want my embellishments kind of all over the place because I already have a pattern that's bold and all over the place. Hopefully that makes sense. So I'm kind of thinking about that as I go. But then I want to go ahead and do a little bit of stamping. And so I'm going to pull out the Sassy Since Birth stamp set. Whew, that's a mouthful, you guys. And there's this one stamp that has 3 little lined up hexagons that have some stripes. And I'm going to pull in a really bright pink. And so I'm grabbing my Catherine Pooler inks. And I'm going to use Party Dress for this. And I'm going to put just one stamped set of these hexagons in each of my embellishment clusters. And my photo is going to overlap those areas. But it's really going to help pull your eye away from all of that bold purple in the background because it's a completely like different contrast in color. But there is bright pink in all of those little like firework shapes that I'm using, so it ties in perfectly. But then I wanted to add a little bit more stamping, so I went ahead and grabbed this, I believe it's a Dilution set. It has these little circles that just have text in them. So I'm going to go ahead and apparently give you a really big close-up. Sorry, guys. I'm going to use my Midnight Black ink, and I'm just kind of placing those where I might want them to go. And I'm going to add those throughout the embellishment clusters as well. And so that's just going to add in a little bit more of that black. It adds in a completely different text, but it just, I don't know, it creates a little bit of layering with my stamping, which I kind of like that look for this particular layout. I did go ahead and stamp those off the page so that it looks, you know, natural where they are. It's not like they're all perfectly lined up in the corners on the page. So I wanted them to kind of go off the mat a little bit. And I'm going to add the same thing in this cluster down here on the bottom. But that additional element of stamping in my embellishment clusters is really going to help my photo still take center stage. So then I went ahead and put my photo on some foam, and you can see once you put it back on that block, it still looks like I've done some detailing and some work, and I've made it super interesting to kind of look at, but I haven't taken anything away from having all of that white space that I need around my photo. So it's just a small detail that kind of makes a big difference. So that was another kind of tip for how to work with these more bold background elements. And then I'm going to, for the kind of last tip I wanted to share with you, I'm going to keep my embellishing fairly simple. So I already have a lot of color. I already have a bold pattern. I have a lot going on, so I don't need to add a lot of embellishments on top of the already lots of things that we have going on in this particular layout. So as you see me start to kind of finish it up, I'm just going to add in these die cuts where I wanted them to be. So I have a couple of those in each of my clusters. I'm going to stay pretty true to this diagonal design throughout the layout. And then I'm really not going to do a ton of embellishing. I wanted to have a phrase down in this bottom corner because I have a phrase underneath my photo as well. And I'm also going to add in this one that says kinda care, kinda don't, because I thought that was kind of cool, added into part of my title element down there. I'm going to go back to the cut apart sheet that came with this collection to find a phrase that I like and that works with my colors for the bottom cluster. So I try a bunch of them from the ephemera pack and decide that they're just not giving me what I want. So I go ahead and fussy cut one from the cut apart sheet instead. And I feel like that just gave me the right color combination. So I'm going to use that one on the bottom that has the orange and the pink. And the pink kind of ties in with the stamping as well. And so that's going to go in that bottom cluster just to kind of even everything out. And I don't necessarily want the center of that little like firework shape to show. So I'm going to use my phrase to kind of cover that little space up because none of the other ones you can see the center. So I didn't really want this one for you to be able to see the center. You could totally leave it as is. You wouldn't have to put anything over it and it would still look awesome. I just feel like that's, I don't know, kind of like a little added detail that I wanted to add. I do go ahead and pull out my enamel dots and I decide that those are probably not what I wanted for this particular layout. So I'm flipping through and I see these little Ellie Studio acrylic hearts, and so I'm going to go with those instead. And I go ahead and add one of those to each of my clusters. So I'm making sure that I keep everything balanced by still adding like the same embellishments to each of those clusters. And that's going to kind of add just an additional texture and dimension element to each one of those. And then I'm also going to pull out some Spiegel Mom Scrap sequins. And like I said, I want to keep these embellishment clusters fairly simple. So I'm just going to add 3 little sequins in each area. So I'm going to pull out this oversized white one. Then I'm going to go ahead and grab some little like yellow swirl ones. And then I think I grabbed some like bright turquoise. But I'm just going to do little clusters of 3 in each of my embellishment clusters. And that is basically going to do it for this layout. So really quick to kind of review those tips that we talked about for using that really bold pattern background. I went ahead and created a photo block that kind of helps my photo stand up off the page. I like to keep my embellishments like tucked in pretty close to or overlapping my photo. Definitely adding those bright pops of color with the stamping under the edges of where the photo is helps draw your eye, and then keeping your embellishments kind of simple so that they don't just add more busyness to the background. And that's going to do it for this one. I'll see you guys again soon. Bye!